You know, it's not like I was expecting to win that game to begin with. But then in typical Ravens fashion, they decided to not only make things interesting, but now because of this, now we have a low-light play that's going to hang over my head for probably the rest of my life. Especially to those who I know who are fans of this team. So thanks, Roman and Harbaugh, for calling a QB sneak when we have J.K. Dobbins, who cried all week to be the guy in this game. How do you let him be that and then give him, what, 16, 17 touches in this game? Only like 13 carries? Nah, run his ass 20, 25 times. Nah, whatever. Roll this intro and let's get into the divisional round. Hello everybody and welcome to the divisional round of the 2022-23 NFL season in my prediction picks. I'm your host, Catherine, known as the Blind Canadian Cat, and as a humility factor for me, because I know I'm never going to be able to live this play down, for shits and giggles, it can be here just so I can deal with this. And for the Cincy fans who watch this, congratulations. You have it. I'm not going to say nothing. A playoff win is a playoff win. It doesn't matter who's starting. Trust me. Well, I could look at the Bills. Skylar Thompson gave them a fight. So, playoffs, divisional games, it is what it is. I'm not going to say nothing, but this play sums up why Greg Roman now no longer has a job here. Granted, he deserves a lot of the credit for Lamar's development and for how that team looked in 2019 when they were the best team in the NFL. He deserves a lot of credit for that. But at some point, things run their course and they just don't work, which is something a lot of teams should learn. Sometimes, while you may have a lot more goods than bads, sometimes being in that flat line, it becomes enough. It's time to move on. So we are moving on. And hopefully, praying first of all that Lamar stays with this team. I'm going to be very upset if he's not. But pray that he stays with us. And then pray we find someone who helped develop the passing game. And then pray that the front office stop trying to draft and develop guys. Fuck the picks. Let's go grab someone. And let's draft more pass rushers. More edge rushers, more linebackers. I don't care who. I want someone. Granted, I don't pay attention to the draft. I don't know. But if we're talking my personal draft preferences, whoever in the draft screams Myles Garrett, one of the Bosa boys, whoever screams that, that's who I want. Give me that. But that's all for me on the Ravens. Their season's done, so we're just gonna move on, and it is what it is. Speaking of the playoffs, about how you expected it would go, to be honest. I went 4-2, and the two games you could have coin flipped either way who you thought was gonna win. Everyone knew the Bills were gonna beat the Dolphins. Everyone knew that the Niners were gonna beat the Seahawks. Everyone knew that the Bengals were gonna beat the Ravens. You could argue most people knew the Giants were gonna beat the Vikings because the Vikings are frauds, but you know that could have been 50-50. But Chargers-Jags was a 50-50 game. Cowboys-Bucks, to a lot of people, was a 50-50 game. Mostly because we thought Dallas was going to choke. And that's what Dallas looks like when they don't choke. When Dallas actually decides to be a good team, that's what they look like. And you can say whatever you want about Tampa. Dallas has confidence now. I mean, we're not going to talk about the extra points that were missed, but that's what a confident Dallas team looks like. And a Dallas team that knows how to perform at the highest level. But, hey, so let's see how they do. But with also that, we go 2-4 against the spread because some teams don't know how to cover. Bills minus 13.5. I thought that was the easiest thing in the world because Skylar Thompson, even when we did play, didn't look good. But screw me sideways, that team put up 30. 31 was it? So I get nothing. Seattle was covered for the most part. Get this, the two Saturday games. At the end of the first half, I looked like a fucking genius. At the end of the second half, end of the game, I was told to go fuck myself. So, thank you, Seattle and LA, for blowing it in the end for me. Thanks, guys. Is what it is. And then 1-5 with the totals because I picked 4 of the 6 games to go under. The first 5 went all over. And the last one, because of those 4 mixed extra points, went under. Which is annoying because the Ravens-Bengals game and that Cowboys-Bucks game, I missed on those both by 1 point. By 1 point. And I mean, to be fair, I was probably doomed from the over. Once that game in Baltimore and Cincinnati was tied 17-17, I was screwed from the start. I knew that, so yeah. But it is what it is. Playoffs, as long as we are good straight up, I really don't care because my spreads and totals have been shit all year. And with that, we have 4 games. We're down to the final 8. Let's see who we're taking. Let's see what we're feeling. First game on the docket, we're going to have the Jaguars, the comeback kings now in the NFL, or at least for this week, temporarily speaking, coming back from 27, which is now the 3rd largest comeback in postseason history. And I don't know if that's more of a testament to Doug Peterson being one of the better coaches, or a more knock on Brandon Staley, who a lot of us are kind of wanting an excuse to fire for a while now, despite being a relatively respectable coach. But we've been wanting to fire him for a while now. And now this is just going to make it look worse. Yikes. I mean, you saw how Dan Quinn and his crew went with the Falcons after they lost that Super Bowl. It was just a downhill spiral from there. They lost. They put up 10 points against Philly the following year in the postseason. But, you know, I don't know how you could keep Brandon Staley to the Chargers after that game, but that's a different subject for another day. Jacksonville, congratulations. You overcame 5 first-half turnovers and won a game despite being that -5 turnover differential. Now you get to go to Arrowhead. You get to play the Chiefs, who, for all intents and purposes, have always been a good team. They've always been better, and they've always kind of sleptwalked the regular season. Because we know they're good. And I don't think they cared if they were the 1st or the 2nd seed. Now, we can talk about that Bills-Bengals game all we want. That was canceled, but Casey is a beneficiary of that, and for that they got the 1 seed, and for that they got the bye. Now they get to the Jags team who, granted, like they said, had 5 first-half turnovers. You don't just get to walk that off. I mean, good job you beating the Chargers for being incompetent, but let's just say if you have 5 first-half turnovers against KC, they'll put up more than 27 points on you. I promise you that. But I don't know what much more you could say. Jacksonville, your game started 50-50, and you probably should have lost that game. But now you got a KC team who isn't dumb, stupid, and dumb. And I don't know what the record is for Andy Reid after bye weeks, but you know, it's one of those things. But it should be no contest. KC's going to win this game, and they're probably going to dog walk Jacksonville. It might be a game early. Who knows? When these two guys played the regular season, it was a 10-point game. So you wonder how much that's going to factor in. But KC should win this game either way. I'm on the line for 8.5. I was leaning towards Jacksonville, mostly because of that confidence built they got after that game. But then I also remembered KC does actually try a little bit. And KC in what? All their first playoff games they've played, they've dropped at least 30 plus. I don't know if I can have faith in the Jags to drop 30 again. Who knows? I'm back and forth on it, but thinking about it, I am going to go with KC to cover that 8.5. I just think KC, this is one of those layup games, and they always kind of dog walk AFC South opponents when they play them in the playoffs. So it's kind of like, oh, another one of you got here somehow? Alright, fine. Might be a game in the first half, but Casey's going to walk away with it in the second half like it was nobody's business. You better hope Trevor Lawrence doesn't throw 4 picks. It's going to get ugly real quick. Total's at 52.5. 52 is a scary number, but I saw those overs hit like crazy last week. And something tells me they're probably going to hit again. I think this becomes one of those things where, like we said, it might be a tight game early, But Casey's going to run away with it. Or Casey's going to run away with it early. And Jags might find some late scores to try to make it a game. Either way, I think the 50 ends up backdoor covered in the fourth quarter. Someone's going to get an extra score. So with that, you're going to have the Chiefs win. They're going to cover, and that total's going to go over. Give me the Chiefs 37, the Jags 24. Chiefs win, they cover over the points. The second game we have is going to be the Eagles hosting the Giants. Eagles were the dominant team throughout most of the season. You could argue some of them that they didn't like their weak schedule, but they played who they played, and they won a lot of games. You know, at least, and then even then, at least they got the 1 seed. If you want to talk about Pittsburgh or Arizona, those guys couldn't maintain their 1 seeds. At least Philadelphia was able to hold on to its 1 seed. So, you want to argue how legit they are? They're better than the 2020 Steelers and the 2021 Cardinals. I don't know if that means they're the best team or if they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they're better than those two teams. Just saying. And the Giants, again, I'll say this once, I'll say it again. My preseason prediction and or expectation, I thought the Giants were going to go 0-17. I legitimately thought that. The possibly 1-16 with the game with Seattle, because I thought Seattle was going to be the worst team, or one of the worst teams. So the fact that the Giants are not only here, but they won a playoff game. And we can talk about Minnesota being frauds all we want. I'm all for it. But that being said, they won the game. Daniel Jones looks really fucking good. And we can debate the legitimacy of Daniel Jones for future reference, but Brian Daboll saved that man's career, at least for another season or two. Daniel Jones should get a contract with New York. Probably some 2 or 3 year deal. Something I'm not gonna blow it out the water thing. And if he doesn't get a deal here, he's gonna get a deal somewhere else. Brian Daboll saved that man's career. He's gonna play another season. They might just franchise tag him, honestly, but we'll see. We'll see. But you have this game, and it's another NFC East game. Philly won both of them, and you could argue that New York kept it interesting with Davis Webb instead of Tyrod Taylor there. But to be fair, it was like a late score that brought the game closer. So even Philly with Jalen Hurts clearly hurt and yada yada, you can think of Jalen Hurts playing that game as kind of like a practice game, because now how funnily he gets to play the Giants again with 2 weeks rest now. It's almost like those one of the annoying bye weeks that they gave out to teams and then make them play the same opponent because, division for division's sake. But, yeah. I like the Giants. I think they were a fun team, and, Brian Daboll is the coach of the year. He is, and it's a travesty if he doesn't get it. I want to give Pete Carroll credit, and you can give Doug Peterson credit for reviving the Jags. You can give him credit for that. Brian Daboll's the coach of the year, and it's not up for debate. And I say that because, again, it comes down to expectation. For me, the Giants were expected to be the worst team in football. Seattle, well, they also projected to be one of the worst teams in football. They kind of got lucky in the end, thanks to Detroit. But, and then Jacksonville, I thought they could be a 6-10 team. I thought they could get, or 6-11. That's where my bar was for them. So the fact they got the 9 wins, and because Tennessee absolutely shat themselves, they got the division, and you beat a Chargers team. But not that the playoffs should matter to this, but the fact that Brian Daboll won his game against a better team, quote unquote, it should be clear and obvious, especially with Daniel Jones. But either way you want to slice the division game for division's sake, I'm taking Philly. I'm taking the rest as an advantage. I'm taking the experience, the team beating them, the more higher level of expectations they're having. I'm taking Philly here. I'm trusting Philly more. However, Jalen Hurts is feeling. I feel like he'll be better. And I just trust Philly more. At this point, it's one of those. I just think Philly's a better team here. And I don't know. I'm just going Philly. I don't know why I'm trying to like make more synopsis, yada yada. And that's also another one. The spread for them is at 7.5, which, to be fair, when the Eagles were fully healthy and at least fully trying for the most part, they won both games by double digits. Granted, in the Giants game, again, the backdoor cover, but they were favored by 14 in that anyway, so backdoor cover was easy peasy. But, admittedly, while I was leaning on that Philly minus 7.5 first, I'm going to go back to the Giants covering. For the sole purpose of, again, I think Philly is feeling a little out of hand. Also, considering before Jalen Hurts came back, they lost 2 games. One where the defense let them down, and the other where the offense let them down. So, now that they won that game, and now they're playing the Giants again, who, it was a close game without their starters. But now that the starters are here, I think it edges out, especially at 7.5. If it were 6.5, I might be more leaning into Philadelphia, but I'm going to go with it. Yeah. I'm going to let the Giants cover. Probably comes down to either a backdoor cover or Philly goes on a game-winning drive. One of those two. I think this game, wherever it's going to be, by midway through the fourth quarter, it'll be maybe a 10-point difference. Whether that's Philly scoring 1, or New York scoring, or somewhere like that. And it'll cut down to 1 after that. That's how I see it. And the total of the game, we're looking at 40.5. Division game for division's sake. Most division games, I'm ignoring all those that happened this week with teams that were just kind of like playing with house money. Again, New York might be playing with house money too, but Philadelphia has a really good defense. Philadelphia's defense has played better. And even against whoever you want to say, they kept New Orleans to a minimum. Basically, stopped anything New York wanted to do just by starting all their backups. And yada yada. And I don't think Daniel Jones gets away with as much of a good game he has here. And I think Jalen Hurts is still healing, so he's not 100%. I'm taking under 48.5. I just think it's too much for this kind of game. It's too many points for this kind of game. So, I got the Eagles winning. I'm going to have the Giants cover 7.5, and we're going under 40.5. Give me the Eagles 27, the Giants 20. Giants cover 7.5. It stays under. We have a decent game. Third game we're going to look at, the Sunday morning game, where Buffalo hosts Cincinnati. In a game that's going to have a lot of emotion, because both these teams went through a lot of things just a few weeks ago. And you can argue, and I feel for Cincinnati fans on this one, why won't this game be played on a neutral site? Again, not that I'm a fan of the neutral site idea, but granted circumstances, it was the best case scenario. Because it was way too late in the season to replay the game. You just couldn't replay that game. But the game's going to be in Buffalo. Whether that has an advantage or not, I don't know. However you want to feel about these two teams, you don't know on that either. Because, granted, division games for division's sake, you never know what can happen. Both those games were close. And both those games, you could argue whether the Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley should have won. Tyler Huntley, more specifically, if you can't really blame it. You can't even blame Tyler Huntley in that game. It's more the coaches, but whatever I say, it don't matter. It don't matter. But this is one of those games where it's, again, I'll say, it's kind of a pick'em. Buffalo hasn't really looked good in general, like the last couple of weeks. Like, they've played all right, but the defense has kind of slacked a little here. I'm trying to think back to all the games. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. But I think about that New England game. You did let the Patriots score 20-plus points on an offense that isn't that good. You let Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins. Skylar Thompson struggled all season whenever he played. And yes, there was one defensive touchdown, but there were still 20-plus points dropped on you. So you gotta wonder where this defense is. You gotta wonder. And then Cincinnati, I've noticed this with Cincinnati a lot, like the last 4 or 5 weeks now. They get hot early. They score a lot of points early. Or they score most of their points early. Either way, by the time the late third, the fourth quarter comes around, that offense doesn't really do anything. It just doesn't. It kind of goes on cruise control. And you think back to the New England game. You think back to both times they played the Ravens. Had they been playing more superior offenses, they probably lose that game. They probably should have lost the Patriots game if Ramondre Stevenson doesn't fumble inside the 10-yard line. It's one of those where it's like, Bengals should have lost more games than you think. But they were playing inferior offenses who were inconsistent at best, so they were able to hold on. But all I'm going to say now is, if this game gets close in the fourth, or if this game is close in the fourth, your money is on Buffalo, because Cincinnati has proven to not really be able to score late. They just don't. Hell, I think that was even a trend last year, that Cincinnati scored a lot early and then stopped scoring late. So for Cincinnati, if they want to win this game, they better have a 10-plus point lead or a 14-plus point lead going into the fourth. They better. Too many points on the table, Buffalo's going to sneak in. And I trust Buffalo at any given time to drop 30. I think Buffalo could drop 30 in this game. I do. But and I could see leaning either way with this game. Again, this is probably the 50-50 game of the season. Or of this week. Of these set 4 games. This is probably the 50-50 game. So you can go either way with it. I'm going to lean on Buffalo. I am leaning on Buffalo here for the sole okay, not the sole purpose of, but like, I do think they're the better team. I think there's more expectation on them to perform. And then I think you got the emotional and the storybook, yada yada. This season has rang Buffalo. Since KC traded away Tyreek Hill, this season was all eyes on Buffalo. You do something. You got the Thursday game to open the season against the Rams. You have all these expectations. You're having your highs, you're having your lows. And now you got the Damar Hamlin situation. It just, you feel like there's some extra thing that's hovering over Buffalo for them to win. The storybook, everything that has happened, you lean on it being for Buffalo. You believe in them. It would punctuate so much. It would make an emotional story have an emotional ending. And for those reasons mostly, I am taking the Bills to win this game. On the line, they're laying 5.5. You can be a Bills fan, you can be a Bengals fan, you can be a Bills better, you can be a Bengals better. Nothing about the Bills team right now has suggested that they should be laying 5.5 in the game. Not to a team of Cincinnati's caliber. Because I think what's going to happen in this game is it's going to be either a tied game or Cincy leads by 3 in the fourth. And I think Buffalo has a drive that wins it. Maybe it's tied, Cincy kicks a field goal, Buffalo gets the touchdown. Something like that. That's kind of how I view this game. So either way, I think Cincy plus 5.5 is one of the better bets here. Because at this rate, you could argue Cincinnati's been playing better than Buffalo. And I won't dispute that, especially when they were initially going to play before the Damar Hamlin situation went down. You could argue Cincinnati's been playing the better team. It's been the better team. But either way, the 5.5 I think is one of the better bets. And what would I know? Every time I say something's a good bet, it ends up biting me in the ass. So I'm just going to stick with that. Excuse me. And then with the total at 48.5, like last game, unlike this game, there's no division rivalry's sake. This is going to be the first legitimate time these two teams have played. I don't think they played last year, and then this year the game got canceled. So all eyes on these two teams. Both have high expectations. And you just gotta feel like Buffalo's just got that little more in them. And because the game's in Buffalo, it might be an advantage. And that advantage might be enough for them. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm taking the Bills straight up, the Bengals to cover, going over 48.5. Give me the Bills 31, the Bengals 27. Bills win, Cincy covers over the points. And then the final game, the historical game for historical reasons. The Niners are hosting the Cowboys. I saw a thing earlier today that says San Fran is leaning towards having Purdy be the guy next season, regardless what happens to Garoppolo or Trey Lance. And you gotta think, unfortunate for Lance, who in his big prove year season, it's one of those, like, damn, you got shortstop with injury. And then Jamie G, who was just happy to be here, he got shortstop with injury. Jamie G probably wasn't going to be on this team anyway, even after this season, but you're looking at this now, like, there's no way in hell he's staying on this team. For no other reason than the cap reasons. All I'm going to say about the Brock Purdy thing, you better beat Dallas. Because if you don't beat Dallas, then you're going to have a lot of questions on legitimacy of Brock Purdy. It's hard to gauge Niner quarterbacks because all three of them have hugely benefited from this scheme, this frame. You don't want to ever call a quarterback a system quarterback. But the fact that Kyle Shanahan was able to run this team with 3 different quarterbacks, and all 3 of them have, for the most part, looked decent enough. You have plenty of weapons. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. Purdy seems to be really working well with Brandon Ayuk. And Christian McCaffrey, a great runner. You got everything you need. And a defense who, like I said, I did say it, DK Metcalf was going to have a game, because if there's anything that you can beat Seattle on, it's that secondary. And what happened? DK exploded for, 100 plus yards and 2 TDs? You can expose it. So a game like this, for Dallas, you're looking at CeeDee Lamb here, especially here. This is your game, my friend. You need to have that game. Dallas, it's one of those, like, you have to wonder, is Dak that QB? I think he's a decent QB. I think he's a good QB. I think he's Dallas's, and they can win with him. Now, granted, everyone else has to show up too. If Dallas plays this week the same way they played Tampa, where everything was smooth enough, you take out Dak's first drive, he was damn near perfect. Or first or second drive, take that out, he was damn near perfect this game. So, it's one of those, if you do that again, you should be fine. Now, the bigger question comes to Dallas' defense, who's been inconsistent at best. You shut down Tom. Good. That was a 45-year-old in an offense that was just not working. Mostly because of Tom, but was not working. Now you got Brock Purdy, and you got weapons and schemes that'll help them everywhere. Trayvon Diggs, you're going to have a hell of a night, and everyone else around you better pray you get something. Dallas is going to need to get pressure. Going to need to get pressure, rock Brock Purdy around, if you want any chance in this game. This game's going to come down to Brock Purdy. I don't think San Fran can get away with as much shit they did with Seattle as they do with Dallas. If Dallas can stay consistent and be the team they were, then they're going to put up a hell of a fight, way more of a fight than Seattle. And San Fran better not have a first half like they did against. Granted, you got one takeaway and then Seattle just spiraled out of control after that. I don't think with Dallas you get one takeaway, they spiral out of control. You got to bring your good game. But with that being said, you can look at it either way. I'm going to take the Niners to win this game, because I do think they're the better team. If for nothing else, the defense. Dallas is not going to score 5 touchdowns. on San Francisco's defense. So it's going to come down to who can make more plays at more given times on the defense. And I'm going to say San Fran makes enough defensive. I still think Dallas will have a respectable game, given that Seattle exposed San Fran a little bit. So I think Dallas is going to have a more respectable game. I don't think San Fran drops 40 on them. I do not. But it could be a good game. I'm going to take San Fran to win. With a line of 3.5, most playoff games you can kind of say 3.5 is okay. Certain games you don't want to lay that. But in a game where you think about last year, how that game ended, you think about most divisional games. Granted, last year in the divisional round, all games were won on, what was it, the final drive, the final play, something like that. So the divisional round has something about keeping games close. But I think San Fran does enough here that they'll cover the 3.5 just fine. Total's at 45.5. I'm going to play the over again. I'm going to assume Brett Maher doesn't miss 4 extra points here. And we get a decent game here. And all eyes on Brock Purdy. Dak Prescott can play all as well as he wants. Brock Purdy now here, they're saying his job to lose. So he might be a little more loose. He might not care as much. He's got house money now. And I think Dallas might take advantage of that. But I'm taking the Niners to win. They'll cover. I'm going to say over the 45.5. Give me the Niners. 27. The Cowboys 23. San Fran wins. They cover 3.5 barely. And Dallas and them go over the 45.5. Those are your things. We'll do a recap over here because the camera's pain in the ass. We're taking the Chiefs to win, the Chiefs to cover, and over the 52. We're taking the Eagles to win, the Giants to cover, and under the 48. We're taking the Bills to win, the Bengals to cover, and over the 48. And we're taking the Niners to win, Niners to cover, over the 45. If there's one game that I personally would bet on being an upset, I would say the Giants over the Eagles. That would be my upset pick, but for all intents and purposes, I'm going to take all the favorites here to win. Granted, 1 seeds, if anything, last year 1 seeds have proven to be unreliable, but if you also look at last year, it's San Fran trolling Green Bay, which they've done for years, and Joe Burrow beating a fraudulent Tennessee team. Now, you can't say this year either one seeds are fraudulent. But yep, those are my picks. That is it for this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, rate, comment, and subscribe to this beautiful channel of mine and this beautiful video. Make sure you follow me on my Twitter, CanadianCatCP, Instagram, like Canadian Cat. Hop into my Twitch, hop into Discord. We have fun. We talk sports. All sorts of lovely chat with lovely people. That is going to be all from me. I shall catch you on the next video. Choose peace, accept love, have big trust. Good night, Internet.